Hello again. It's June 18th and time for another edition with Wednesday with Walton, available here in video form at thecardinalnation.com and in audio form at the Scoops Sports Network and all your favorite podcast apps. As you can see to my left, it is not Kyle Reese. He's going to be on assignment the next couple of weeks, but I'm pleased that we have a guest analyst to fill in, and that's Kareem Baz, who many of you know from Birds on the Farm, and his live podcasts as well, his live streams as well as his podcast, and of course his website cardinalsprospects.com, which is a place that you really need to go to learn about prospects. You can follow Kareem on Twitter, on social media at Kareem SSN, like Social Security number, although I don't think that's what it stands for. Welcome, Kareem.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for having me on. Always fun to talk about prospects in the Cardinals organization.
So this week we're going to talk about some prospects that have caught Kareem's eye that are on the upswing. But before we get into the details on the prospects, Kareem, you're really a big proponent of Statcast data. What teams is that data available for? Which ones is it not? And when you're looking at that data, how do you sort through it to figure out which areas to focus on when you look at prospects, whether hitters or pitchers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Statcast is available throughout the major league level, but in the minor leagues, it's available entirely at the AAA level and the Florida State League, which, luckily the Cardinals play in. So we get two minor league affiliates with Statcast data.
And of course, the reason that it's available in Palm Beach is because it's a major league park, and they want to have that data available from spring training games. And once the equipment's there, the equipment's there. But it's
Yeah,
kind of ironic because Palm Beach, of course, was the last place to get video feeds of games.
yeah, it's been fun to watch Palm Beach regularly. They didn't have a video feed until this year, so getting to actually watch those guys routinely, it feels like having the data along with the video. I think it helps a little bit, and yeah, it's been fun to watch those guys. But some stats that I look at in terms of the Statcast data for pitchers, pitch movement data. So what is that? I'm looking at velocity for the pitches, induced vertical break, which is pretty much the break that a pitch gets, without gravity. For example, like a fastball, right? What is a good induced vertical break typically for a fastball? I'd say if a pitcher has an average release height, I would say anything 17 or higher is good, but it really fluctuates depending on what a pitcher's release height is. For example,
If a guy's a lower launch guy, obviously his IVB is going to be lower.
correct.
Yeah.
Typically speaking. But I mean, the Cardinals have some guys that throw from lower releases that have jump on their fastball. One of which we'll talk about on this podcast, Michael Watson, and that's where you get the invisible, sort of classification. I think Zach Showalter is similar in that sense as well, where they have that fastball that generates a decent amount of carry from a low slot. So it's I look at vertical break, velocity, horizontal break, similar to vertical, but moving horizontally, release height, horizontal release height. And as far as just results, I look at whiff rates for pitchers, the batted ball data as far as ground ball rate, line drive rate, fly ball rate, hard hit rate. So batted balls 95 miles an hour or higher. Sweet spot 8 degrees. 8 to 32 degree launch angle. So, I mean, stuff like that, I would say, in terms of the results. And for hitters, I think the results are similar. I would say, average exit velocity, 90th percentile exit velocity, which takes a hitter's top 10% of their, highest exit velocities that they have and averages it out. Sweet spot percentage, similarly, as I talked about, 8 to 32 degree launch angle, barrel rate, correct, chase rate. So, I mean, there's a lot of different stats that I look at to get a better picture of a hitter's profile that, sometimes the slash lines that you see might not best interpret like all that sort of data, So having that alongside the slash lines and what the hitter's actually producing is very helpful.
So when you guys are looking at various feeds on X, formerly known as Twitter, make sure you go to Kareem SSN and look, because he does a great job of marrying the video with these stats, and so you can see the point he's making. If he's talking about somebody's exit velocity or he's talking about somebody's quality of contact, you can get a feel for what that means in terms of bat hitting ball or bat missing ball or ball missing bat, so to speak. So since you mentioned Michael Watson, it probably isn't the top prospect in the system by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a guy that intrigues you, and you started to touch on why. Go ahead and elaborate a bit, Kareem.
Yeah, I think he has one of the best fastballs in the Cardinal system when we're talking about a pitch that it might only be 92 miles an hour on average. The velocity has jumped a lot since he entered into pro ball. I think part of that is due to him just being more so a reliever, but I do think that the Cardinals organization has unlocked a little bit more velocity in there. He was high 80s in college and was an undrafted free agent. And, this is someone the Cardinals have worked on to improve. The release height's a lot lower as well. And having
left-hander, by the way, right?
Left-hander, right. And, he's someone I talked about. He's someone I talked to earlier in the season. And, he mentioned to me that the Cardinals put a big emphasis on him just being more athletic on the mound, and he's doing a better job at extending down and getting to that lower release height, and it's really helping that fastball play up. And it might only be 92 miles an hour, but it's still one of the best in the system, and he has certainly performed like one of the best relief pitchers in this organization since the Cardinals signed him last year. He's limited batters to 146, 270, 210 slash line over his first two pro seasons. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I think he's ascending. I think he's one of the more exciting relief pitching prospects in the organization already when he's able to put over that sort of success and has a fastball as quality as his is. Still needs to develop some of the off-speed breaking stuff, but I think that at least in a bullpen role, that fastball is going to carry the profile, and it is so far at the low A and high A level.
And what Kareem's talking about, Michael Watson, the left-hander, started the year at Palm Beach, moved up to Peoria, 11 strikeouts per 9. Walks are a little bit high at 4.8, but we're talking about a guy in high A. Whip under 1. So Kareem mentioned he looks at whip, and of course whip is walks and hits per inning pitch. I mean, if your whip is under 1, you're doing a great job of minimizing base traffic on the bases, and therefore that's why his ERA is under 3.
Yeah.
Right, so another player of interest in the system that you singled out, another pitcher, I should say, is Ixan Henderson. And Ixan Henderson, folks have heard a lot about him because he's off to a very strong start at Springfield this year in 11 starts, 1.95 ERA, which I think is lowest in the Texas League. He leads the Cardinals system with 70 strikeouts. Again, this is a guy that doesn't have upper 90s fastball, but is very, very effective. Why? What is it about Ixan Henderson that makes him so good?
You know what, Brian? I was somewhat surprised that, Henderson started the season at Double-A, but I mean, he's done nothing but perform this year. 1.95 ERA in 60 innings. He's striking out hitters at a solid rate, 28.9%, 9.1% walk rate, and he's only allowed 2 home runs this year, and that's in the hitter-friendly Texas League. I think that's been very impressive. Henderson entering the season, I think I had him around 20 on my preseason list, and I felt like I was the high guy on him, and he's
probably were, yeah. In my case, he was closer to 30.
Yeah, and he's going to be going up from, or I guess down, right?
Right.
I think he's going to be closer to, 10, 15 range, maybe next time I update my list. I mean,
just as another data reference, Kyle's latest list, he's 12.
Yeah, I think somewhere around there seems right.
Yep.
But yeah, Henderson, I don't think it's anything crazy from a stuff standpoint. I think the fastball is solid. I think it's better. It's a better fastball than some of the other Cardinals arms that are sort of in this, pitchability kind of mold. whether it be, someone like a Max Rajic. I think it's a better fastball than that. It sits around 92, 93 miles an hour, which is up a little bit from last year. 16 inches of carry when he was down at Palm Beach, and I assume it to be similar. And it's from a 5.5 release height. Plays pretty well up in the zone. He'll mix in a variety of secondaries. I think the best being his low 80s sweeper. I think that last year he relied on it heavily against lefties, but we're seeing him use the pitch inside to righties more this year as well, and it's played wonderfully. I think it's probably been his best performing pitch this year. And he'll mix in a decent changeup against righties and a cutter that he debuted in the Arizona Fall League, as well as a slower curveball that he'll mix in for called strikes. So, I mean, that's a ton of pitches that he throws. I think it's decent fastball, a pretty good sweeper. And when you're performing the way that Henderson is performing his first time around in the Texas League, I mean, that's got to catch your eye.
I mean, yeah, as you're alluding to, the Texas League is known as a hitter's haven, and for a pitcher to come in with no experience at the level, as you said, and post an ERA under 2 through the first half, that definitely opens eyes. And you think about some guys in the past in the system that have done well at Double-A, and they've been guys that have been successful in the majors as well. So, only 23 years old, and again, not only the solid ERA rate, but 10.5 strikeouts per 9, which for a starter is, again, catches your eye.
Yeah, it's not only strikeouts, he's limiting the walks, and the quality of contact has been, he's limited it well so far. So gonna watch to see if he's able to keep that up. I think the home run rate might climb a little bit, but even so, if he's able to keep it at a manageable rate with the amount of strikeouts and walks, or the strikeout to walk rate, I think this is someone that's gonna be able to put up some good stats for sure.
Now, we're talking about Ixan Henderson here. Henderson's strikeout to walk ratio a little over 3, about 3.2. His teammate Brycen Mautz, 4-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. And Mautz is a guy, left-hander, drafted a couple years ago. Had a nice debut, partial year, but only had a so-so year at Palm Beach. But again, through his first 10 starts at Springfield, 3.18 ERA. And certainly Brycen Mautz is one of the reasons, along with Henderson, that the Springfield Cardinals looks like they're going to win their division here in the first half.
Yeah, underwhelming season in 2024 for Mautz. I think he wasn't like a top 30 prospect. I don't think I even had him in consideration for one of those last spots.
I had him up high in 2023. Then last year he slid every month down into, I think, maybe even the 40s. And now, of course, he's coming back up.
Yeah, like disappointing year. 5.18 ERA last year in 121 and 2/3 innings for High A Peoria. And the biggest thing that I took away was his struggles against right-handed bats. They slashed 287, 362, 528 against him. He kept lefties at bay, but right-handed bats absolutely matched against him. And I think he's done some things this season in terms of just optimizing the arsenal, adding some pitches that I think will help him in those matchups. If you had something to comment, Brian.
Nope. I'm just nodding my head in agreement.
Okay.
It's good to see. And in fact, Mautz's last game, 9 strikeouts in 6 innings pitched. That was a nice, and he was named player of the no, I don't think he was named pitcher of the week, but it was a very good outing for Brycen Mautz last time out.
Yeah, 6 shutout innings, 9 strikeouts, just 1 walk and 2 hits. So I mean,
go.
his best start of the season for sure. So yeah,
all right, well, let's flip the script a little bit and talk about some hitters. Couple catchers. Right now, this is a stat that I'd love to throw out while it's still valid, and that is 4 of the top 5 home run hitters in the St. Louis Cardinals minor league system right now are catchers. How about that? And the guy leading the way, 11 home runs, Leonardo Bernal, switch hitter, 21 years old, tearing up Double-A. What are you seeing from Leonardo Bernal?
Yeah, it's been a breakout year for him. 151 WRC plus, and that's as a 21-year-old in Double-A.
So that's 51% above league average offensive performance. 51% in a hitter's league at the age of 21.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I think that we've seen improvements in terms of just his ability to generate loft. The ground ball rate has been right around 45% throughout his career, but that number is down to 38% this year. He's always hit the ball decently hard for his age with solid raw power, but the ISO is up to 250 this year, which that's a significant you know that's significantly up from his career norms. And I think part of that is getting over to the Texas League where some of those home runs are going to get out. But at the same time, like you can't deny how drastic of a power uptick this has been. I mean, he's already tied a career high with 11 home runs.
And
So
half the season to go.
half the season to go as well, right? The bat to ball skills have also taken a step up. It's not just like the power is ticking up. Contact percentage jumped from 75.9% last year to 81.3%. So, I mean, he's whiffing under 20% of the time, which is very, very impressive, especially when you pair that with, the power that he's providing. The K percentage has dropped from 22% last year to 16.3%. This isn't someone that's going to strike out a whole lot. His whiff rate on breaking pitches, he's not whiffing as much on those as opposed to last year. So I think that some of these contact improvements, I think they are sustainable. As he goes up against better pitching, guys that are more willing to use their breaking balls. As he sends over to AAA in the major leagues. So yeah, and
How do you view Bernal offensively compared to Ivan Herrera at the same level?
I think they're similar. I would say. I think that Herrera had more of a flatter VBA. I would say. I think it was more ground balls and lower line drives. I think Bernal's really starting to get into more launch and ability to drive the ball in the air. So aside from that, I mean, I think it's very similar. I don't think Bernal is quite the patient hitter that Ivan Herrera was throughout his time in the minor leagues.
On the other hand, Bernal's walk rate versus the strikeout rate are pretty good. They're not quite equal, but he's drawn 22 walks in less than 200 plate appearances. So he's not swinging everything, obviously.
Yeah, I think that in terms of just improving his chase rate, I think he's done a better job this year at that, and we're seeing the walk rate start to climb. But Herrera was one of the more patient hitters, if I remember correctly, down in the minor leagues.
Yes,
I don't
he
think
was.
it's that sort of approach. Like Bernal is a little bit more aggressive, but aside from just the offense, the defense remains solid behind the plate. I mean, he has
Well,
some of the best
that's an
caught
important
stealing
factor.
numbers.
I was gonna ask you about that. Will his defense play in the major leagues? And granted, he's still got AAA to go, but that's the big question. As we see Herrera, who of course is more of an offensive threat than a defensive threat.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about his caught stealing rate so far, 36.8%,
That's
which is
excellent.
among the top in minor league baseball. So he's not having any sort of issues in terms of throwing out runners. I know that Herrera in the minor leagues didn't have these same sort of issues, but that is still very, very impressive. And Bernal has a cannon of an arm, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I could build a case that say, Bernal is ready to be challenged at AAA, but Jimmy Crooks is there playing every day, and of course, there's three catchers on the major league roster. So, this is an area that the Cardinals are going to have to figure out what to do before too long because, Bernal certainly isn't dying on the vine at AA, but if he continues to play like this as the season goes on, he's not going to have much left to prove there.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. And another guy, I mean, Pedro Pages at the major league level. I know that there are some, critics of Pages, but he's been playing really well defensively, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
he's someone that the organization values a ton. So, between him, Herrera, Crooks in AAA, Bernal in AA, there's a lot of catchers, in this organization that are close to being ready to contribute
Yeah,
or
I just posted.
at
In
the major
fact,
league level already.
pardon me for. Yeah, in fact, I posted an article the other day about the Sabre Defensive Index, which is a series of blended metrics which is used to help select the Gold Glove Award winners every year. And the first round of the SDI, they call it Sabre Defensive Index for the National League, Pedro Pages is the second ranked catcher in the National League right now defensively. So the metrics tend to bear out what you said, Kareem. But there's another catcher who's making waves, 18 years old. 14 months ago, we didn't know who Ray Rodriguez was. He wasn't signed until April of last year. Blew through the Dominican Summer League, All-Star, midseason, postseason. Started off in the Florida Complex League, so he didn't begin play until about a month ago, a little over a month ago. And he's only had 120 plate appearances this year, and he already has 8 home runs, which is tied for 4th in the system. Now, he moved up to Palm Beach and really hasn't slowed down there at all. And we're talking about an 18-year-old in low A. What are you seeing from Rodriguez that excites you other than about everything?
Well, it's the power potential. I think that the Cardinals organization, I feel like, doesn't have a ton of true, in-game power bats. I feel like Rainiel Rodriguez, we're looking at a potential, 70 grade power kind of guy.
And by the way, Ivan Herrera is the St. Louis Cardinals cleanup hitter today, just to say, and nothing against Ivan Herrera, but that's a lot to put on a young guy. Anyway, back to Rodriguez. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talked about it, but absolutely shredded the Dominican Summer League and the Florida Complex League in back-to-back seasons in his age 17 and age 18 seasons. Still only 18 years old, as you mentioned, at Palm Beach, and he's still, showing that power potential that he showcased in rookie ball.
You posted a couple of clips and quoted and his exit velocities 104.1, 102.6. Kind of put that in perspective. What are those numbers? How do those numbers stack up?
Yeah, so I mean, his 90th percentile exit velocity. I touched on what that stat was earlier in the episode, but pretty much top 10%. Your 10%, your highest. Your top 10% hardest hit balls that you have. Pretty much the average of that. And for Rainiel Rodriguez, it's 103.5, which is above average for the Florida State League, and that's as an 18-year-old. So I think we'll continue to see that number.
An 18-year-old who's only been in the league like 2 weeks.
Right. And I think we'll continue to see that number trend up as he gets older and matures. But already having that, and it's not like he's just someone that has solid raw power. What impresses me the most about him is just his ability to loft and elevate and hit the ball in the air where he's going to do damage. So in the Dominican Summer League last year, it was a 28.8% ground ball rate, just not hitting the ball on the ground on the ground at all. And in the Florida Complex League before he got promoted, it was 20.9%. So I mean, this is someone that's hitting the ball in the air. And, you need to hit the ball in the air if you're going to hit for power. And we're seeing that with Rainiel Rodriguez. The fly ball rates, now that he's jumped over to Palm Beach, the Palm Beach level, they've still been elite. And paired with the exit velocities that he's going to provide, this is going to be someone that is a legitimate power threat. And I think the best true power bat that this minor league system has seen since Nolan Gorman. And I think he has a chance to even exceed a Nolan Gorman as he gets older.
Now, my only concern, and I have to remind myself that he's only 18 years old. He would be just a graduated from high school if he was in the U.S. But Rodriguez is 5'9", 209. He's not a physical. Normally, you think, and of course, Jim Wynn, the toy cannon. There are some guys who had Bagwell in Houston. There are some smaller guys who had home run power, but usually you think of a prototypical, Dave Kingman, Mark McGwire kind of guy, and Rodriguez doesn't have that kind of physique.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly still some questions about his defense. I haven't been thoroughly impressed by what I've seen so far at the Palm Beach level since he's been over there, and but we have to remember he's only 18 years old. I think while he still is a work in progress defensively, I think what's been more impressive, what's really the carrying tool for him is the bat. And if the bat lives up to the potential that I think it has, I don't think it's going to matter where he plays.
They'll find a place to play. I mean, his OPS right now is ridiculous. It's like 1100. And again, part of that was in the complex league, but still, very impressive bat, Rainiel Rodriguez. How about Rodriguez's teammate, Deniel Ortiz? This is a guy that's 16th rounder last year. Nobody knew much about him. Played some winter ball, didn't really do a lot. You wrote about him and you talked about his swing and miss, which is a little high. His strikeout rate's pushing 30%, but you talked about quality of contact and mentioned, again, in his case, an exit velocity of 108.7. Talk a little bit about the pros and cons of Ortiz as a 20-year-old in his first professional action.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals being able to get a bat like this late in last year's draft, still just 20 years old, someone that had success in the MLB Draft League and the Northwoods League at such a young age. I was kind of surprised that he opted to um, go straight into pro ball as opposed to transferring up to a college. I feel like that Ortiz had a chance to make a little bit more money. I know that he did get an overslot bonus, but still, I
But
think
he's not going to buy a new mansion with what he got.
no. But yeah, like as you said, the quality of contact has been like among the best in the Florida State League. Like even before some of the numbers started to like the numbers weren't great at the start of the season, but he was still hitting the ball so well. And it's come around over his last 20 games. He's slashing 400, 500, 629, which, has boosted his season WRC plus to 137. And I mean, we're talking about a 20-year-old in A ball. That's very impressive. He leads the Florida State League with a 54.2% sweet spot rate. So 8 to 32 degree launch angle, which is optimal for getting hits, and he's consistently doing that. 94th percentile in hard hit rate, 94th percentile in exit velocity on balls that are hit in the air, and 97th percentile in barrel rate. So we're talking about a guy that has some of the best quality of contact numbers in the Florida State League, and this just being his age 20 season, that has been very impressive to me. But as you alluded to, there is some swing and miss in his game that, I think that over this stretch that he's had over the last 20 games, he's made some improvements in that regard, but it's still a below average bat to ball kind of guy. I think the approach has been solid though. He's going to walk a decent amount, not going to chase out, not going to expand the zone too much, but just overall, I've been very impressed by the quality of contact, and the numbers as a 20-year-old in A ball have been ridiculous.
And again, not only a 20-year-old in A ball, but a 20-year-old in A ball who has less than 50 professional games, less than 200 plate appearances as a professional. So there's still a lot of time for Deniel Ortiz to continue to improve. A guy to watch, definitely. A guy that's moving up, or I guess, yeah, moving up the prospects list.
Yeah,
So,
and much like, oh, my bad for cutting you off there.
no, go.
Much like Rainiel, I think that there are going to be some questions in terms of position. I heavily scouted the MLB Draft League last year, and he didn't look great at third base. It seemed like he was destined to play first base, and he's looked a bit better so far with Palm Beach, but I still think that his ultimate position is probably off that position, whether it be first base. I'd be curious to see if he gets some time in the corner outfield as well, but we're really betting on the bat with Ortiz. I don't think he's going to provide much defensive value.
Yeah, Ortiz, they've already started to play him at first as well as third, probably for the reasons you said. And that puts a little more pressure on his bat, but that's obviously his forte. And just before we leave Ortiz, I want to point out right now his on-base percentage is just a tad over 400. And again, that's kind of a profile that Herrera had when he was young as well. Last hitter that you singled out that you want to talk about is a guy who a year ago, a little later in the season, but got sent back to Palm Beach from Peoria, Joshua Baez, second rounder, back from a few years ago, but still, very, very young at 22. Started this year back at Peoria, did exceptionally well. Now has moved up to Springfield, continues to do well. In addition to hitting the ball well, hitting with power, getting on base, 24 stolen bases in 27 attempts. So, you got a guy that can hit with power, he can drive in runs, and he can steal bases. That's a nice combination. I'm one who admitted I kind of gave up on Joshua Baez, and obviously I did too soon.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have him inside my top 30 either entering the season, and that looks foolish at this point with the strides that he's made so far this year. But since being drafted in 2021, we've known about Joshua Baez's tools. The thunderous raw power that he has. I mean, he hit a ball 114 for a home run like about a week ago for Springfield, and that would rank amongst the top exit velocities for a home run in the Statcast era for the Cardinals. So I mean, we're talking about serious raw power with the Joshua Baez, and as you mentioned, the stolen base totals. I think he's got above average speed as well. So there's a lot of traits. He's got a strong throwing arm as well. So a lot of traits that you could always dream on, but it felt like he never put it all together. The strikeout rate was very high. 2024 at the high A level, 37.3%. I mean, that's not going to cut it. Contact rate of just 63%. So, I mean, that's 37% whiff rate. Again, that's way too high, especially at that level. But he was placed on the development list last year, made some tweaks, and, he finished the season strong with Palm Beach and, helped them win that, FSL title. And, as I touched on, like the swing changes that he made, I think that he unlocked more hitability in his profile. He flattened out his stroke to help make more low launch contact. And, he's no longer afraid to take the ball to the opposite field. He felt very pull happy at the start of his professional career. He's going the opposite field a lot more, showing a more complete, well-rounded offensive skill set. There are still some holes in his swing, but his bat to ball skills went from poor to closer to fringe average, I would say, this year, which, considering, the power is still there, I mean, that's a huge development for Joshua Baez. And, the swing decisions have also improved significantly. So not chasing as much outside the strike zone. The contact rate last year, 63%. And, this year, 72.4%. So that's a jump of nearly 10 percentage points. The strikeout rate last year, 37.3% at high A. This year, overall, between high A and double A, 24%. So way more manageable level. And yeah, like the power standing out, the speed, 24 stolen bases. And yeah, I know that I didn't have him inside my preseason top 30, but he's probably going to end up not only being on my, next list, but in the top half as well, because the tools are way too exciting.
And that's where I'm going to be as well. But again, our friend Kyle Reese has Joshua Baez currently number 9 in the system. And that is a very aggressive position, but it shows, the progress that he's made this year. Now, we don't have time to cover a lot of other prospects this week, but if you go to Kareem SSN on X, he's commented recently about players that are very prominent, like Quinn Matthews and Tink Hence, but also less so, Ian Petrutz, Luis Pino, Luis Gastelum, Jacob Odell, Alan Reyes, Sam Broderson, Christian Worley. These are guys that we don't have time to always talk about because they're not in the top 30, maybe the top 50 prospects, but they have tools like Michael Watson that Kareem mentioned earlier that may be enough in the right environment to carry them to the big leagues someday. So before we go, Kareem, tell us about Birds on the Farm, what you do there, and then what people can see when they go to cardinalsprospects.com.
Yeah, so weekly on Tuesdays, I host a podcast with my buddy Sandy McMillan over on the Dealing the Cards YouTube channel, and we talk about all sort of developments in the Cardinals farm system. And lately, we've been doing a lot of draft content, ramping up for the draft this year, and yeah, like it's been fun to start that podcast. We've been doing it for almost a year now, and yeah, always fun to hop on that every Tuesday. And we've started to do live streams, which has been fun. Interacting with the chat, and yeah, you can catch me over there. You can find it on the Deal in the Cards YouTube channel. And every Tuesday we go live in the evening, or sometimes today we went live around noon. But you can catch us on Tuesday, and yeah, it's one of the things I look forward to the most right now. Definitely.
Yeah, these podcasts are a lot of fun, and I really thank you for joining me this week, Kareem. And next week you'll be back as well, and we're going to have an episode specifically focused on prospects. On draft prospects. And normally this is the time of year the draft would have already been held, the middle of June, and now of course it's been delayed a month, so we still have maybe 3 weeks until the draft, and it'll be another very exciting time for the Cardinals to hopefully help continue replenish the minor league system. Again, Kareem, thank you for joining this week, and we will talk to you next time around. And everyone, thank you for joining us on the June 18th edition of Wednesday with Walton. See you next time.